Judicial interpretation of citizenship laws in India is necessary to clarify doubts and resolve disputes relating to citizenship status. The constitutional provisions on citizenship, Articles 5 to 11, and the Citizenship Act, 1955 often involve complex facts, such as migration, foreign citizenship, renunciation, and deprivation, which require interpretation by courts. Judicial interpretation helps in explaining unclear or ambiguous words, deciding whether a person has voluntarily acquired foreign citizenship, and ensuring that citizenship is not taken away arbitrarily or unfairly. Courts also interpret citizenship laws to protect fundamental rights, maintain national security, and balance individual rights with the interests of the state. Thus, judicial interpretation is essential to ensure justice, legality, and uniform application of citizenship laws in India. Judicial interpretation. Judicial interpretation means the explanation and clarification of laws and constitutional provisions by courts when their meaning is unclear or disputed. In matters of Indian citizenship, judicial interpretation plays an important role in defining the scope, meaning, and application of the constitutional provisions and the Citizenship Act, 1955. The power of judicial interpretation is mainly exercised by the Supreme Court of India, which ensures that citizenship laws are applied fairly and according to constitutional principles. Case law. In State Trading Corporation v. Commercial Tax Officer, the Supreme Court held that citizenship is available only to natural persons and not to artificial persons like companies or corporations. This decision clarified that fundamental rights and citizenship-related rights are meant for human beings, not legal entities. Thus, judicial interpretation helps remove ambiguity, ensures justice, fairness, and consistency, and protects the constitutional scheme of citizenship in India. Judicial interpretation is the process by which courts find the true meaning of laws passed by the legislature and apply them to real cases. Who performs judicial interpretation? In India, judicial interpretation is mainly done by the Supreme Court of India. High courts also interpret laws within their jurisdiction. Judicial interpretation of citizenship laws in India is mainly performed by the Supreme Court of India, which is the highest constitutional authority. The Supreme Court interprets the provisions of the Constitution, such as Articles 5 to 11, and laws like the Citizenship Act, 1955, to resolve disputes related to citizenship. High courts also perform judicial interpretation within their respective jurisdictions, especially in cases involving citizenship status, loss of citizenship, or rights of citizens. Through their judgments, courts clarify the meaning of citizenship laws, ensure they are applied fairly, and protect constitutional values such as equality, justice, and rule of law. Reasons for judicial interpretation. Ambiguity or vagueness in laws. Changing social and economic conditions. Conflicts between laws or constitutional provisions. Protection of fundamental rights. Judicial interpretation of citizenship laws is necessary because the provisions of the Constitution and the Citizenship Act may sometimes be unclear, incomplete, or disputed. Situations like migration, acquisition of foreign citizenship, or loss of citizenship often raise complex legal questions that require clarification by courts. Judicial interpretation helps in resolving conflicts between constitutional provisions and statutory laws, and in deciding whether a person is a citizen or not in specific cases. It is also required to prevent misuse of citizenship rights and to protect national interest and sovereignty. Further, changing social, political, and international conditions make it necessary for courts to interpret citizenship laws in a fair, just, and consistent manner. Thus, judicial interpretation ensures certainty, justice, and uniform application of citizenship laws in India. Methods. Rules of judicial interpretation. Courts use different methods or rules of judicial interpretation to find the correct meaning of laws and constitutional provisions. The main methods are as follows. The literal rule means that words of the law are given their ordinary and plain meaning, and the court does not go beyond the text. The golden rule is applied when the literal meaning leads to an absurd or unjust result. In such cases, the court modifies the meaning slightly to avoid injustice. The mischief rule focuses on the problem or defect in the old law and interprets the new law in a way that removes that mischief and advances the remedy. The harmonious construction rule is used when two constitutional provisions appear to conflict. The court interprets them in a way that gives effect to both without destroying either. The purposive interpretation method looks at the object and purpose of the law rather than just the words, especially in constitutional and social welfare laws. These methods help courts ensure that laws are applied with justice, logic, and constitutional values. Literal rule. Words are given their plain and ordinary meaning. The literal rule is the basic rule of judicial interpretation. According to this rule, the court gives the ordinary, plain, and natural meaning to the words used in a statute or constitutional provision. If the language of the law is clear and unambiguous, the court does not add, subtract, or modify the words, even if the result appears harsh or inconvenient. The main idea of the literal rule is that the intention of the legislature is best understood from the words used by it. Courts apply this rule to respect the supremacy of the legislature and to avoid judicial overreach. Who performs judicial interpretation? In India, judicial interpretation is mainly done by the Supreme Court of India. High courts also interpret laws within their jurisdiction. Judicial interpretation of citizenship laws in India is mainly performed by the Supreme Court of India, which is the highest constitutional authority. The Supreme Court interprets the provisions of the Constitution, such as Articles 5 to 11, and laws like the Citizenship Act, 1955, to resolve disputes related to citizenship. High courts also perform judicial interpretation within their respective jurisdictions, especially in cases involving citizenship status, loss of citizenship, or rights of citizens. Through their judgments, courts clarify the meaning of citizenship laws, ensure they are applied fairly, and protect constitutional values such as equality, justice, and rule of law. Mischief rule focuses on the problem the law intended to solve. The mischief rule of judicial interpretation is used by courts to find out the real purpose of a law. Under this rule, the court looks at the problem or mischief that existed before the law was made and interprets the law in such a way that the mischief is removed and the objective of the law is achieved. Instead of focusing only on the literal meaning of words, the court considers the intention of the legislature. This rule helps in ensuring that laws are applied in a manner that promotes justice and effective implementation, especially in social and welfare legislation. Harmonious construction. Conflicting provisions are interpreted together. Harmonious construction is used when two or more legal provisions appear to conflict with each other. Courts interpret such provisions in a way that gives effect to all provisions without nullifying any. The aim is to maintain balance and consistency within the legal system, especially in constitutional interpretation. Purposive interpretation. Emphasis on the purpose and object of the law. Under purposive interpretation, the court looks at the object, purpose, and spirit of the law, rather than only the literal meaning of words. This method is commonly used in constitutional matters to ensure that laws remain effective, flexible, and relevant to changing social conditions. Role of judicial interpretation in Constitution. Protects fundamental rights. Maintains supremacy of the Constitution. Ensures checks and balances. Adapts the Constitution to changing needs of society. Judicial interpretation plays a very important role in the working of the Constitution of India. Through interpretation, courts clarify the true meaning of constitutional provisions when they are unclear, vague, or disputed. It helps in protecting fundamental rights of citizens and ensures that laws made by the legislature do not violate constitutional principles. Judicial interpretation also maintains the supremacy of the Constitution by checking misuse of power by the legislature and executive. By adopting various methods of interpretation, courts are able to adapt the Constitution to changing social, economic, and political conditions, making it a living and dynamic document. Thus, judicial interpretation ensures justice, rule of law, balance of powers, and effective constitutional governance in India. Importance. Clarifies the law. Prevents misuse of legislative power. Ensures justice and rule of law. Makes the Constitution a living document. The importance of judicial interpretation lies in ensuring justice, rule of law, and constitutional governance. It clarifies vague laws, protects fundamental rights, prevents misuse of power, and ensures uniform application of citizenship laws. Through interpretation, courts uphold democracy, equality, and constitutional values, making judicial interpretation an essential pillar of the Indian legal system. Conclusion. Judicial interpretation plays a vital role in the Indian legal system. By interpreting laws and the Constitution, courts ensure that justice is delivered, rights are protected, and laws remain relevant in a changing society. It strengthens democracy and constitutional governance.